Hi everyone, and welcome to Cranjis' Corner. Just like a corner 3 in the NBA, we're keeping it short and we're going to keep it efficient. Also like a corner 3, we're looking to score 3 major points, but ours are scheme, film, and data. And we're going to bring in some informed analysis to aid this pursuit. No narratives, no BS, all basketball. Let's get right into it. So today's video will focus on the Warriors and Pelicans second round matchup. The one big injury I want to touch on before we get into those 3 major points is Steph Curry. He might be back game 1, game 2, game 3. We don't really know, but we're going to look at each of those scenarios because that will have an impact on how this series goes, as you'll see later. Alright, so the first of those major points that we'll touch on is scheme. We're going to take a top-down approach, start broad, then narrow our focus down to the exact ways that those teams will be picking each other apart. Alright, so let's get into that reverse pyramid scheme, or scheme pyramid, scheme funnel. There we go. So we're going to start out utilizing my team scheme ratings to give us a good idea of how, at a high level, each team matches up with their X's and O's. The Warriors rank 4th in the league in their offensive scheme. That's tier 1. That's elite. Very few teams have elite scheme. Very few teams have elite talent. The Warriors are kind of on their own in that they have both, and that's what makes them so lights out on offense. Their set plays are fantastic. Their freelance motion with regard to what they do during post-up, so their split cuts, the flare screens they throw at you, those open up a lot of really good, really easy looks for them, and combined with their personnel makes them very deadly. There are areas where they're not elite, and that's okay, that's normal. Their out-of-bounds plays are good, they're about average. Their secondary break isn't much to write home about, and their freelance motion during pick and rolls also isn't really much at all. So there are areas they theoretically could improve, but they're so strong in a couple key areas and with their set plays and their talent that they're just fantastic offensively. But they're matched up with another titan when it comes to X's and O's, and that's the New Orleans Pelicans. Pelicans rank 2nd, also in tier 1. And they don't quite have that same elite talent as Golden State, but the way they utilize their players closes that gap and allows them to probably stay tight with talented teams in a way that a similarly situated team that doesn't run as good of sets would be able to do. So the Pelicans are equipped with a top defense, a superstar on both ends. Drew Holliday is rising to the occasion, and all of that, along with these X's and O's, makes them one of the league's most dangerous teams. And despite playing the 8th best regular season defense, New Orleans right now has been the most efficient playoff team so far. So let's take the next step down in that funnel, and that is to the play types. So here are the 11 play types teams use to run their offense, and here's the volume and frequency ranks for each team. So this is just how much they run it and how that ranks up with the rest of the league. When we look at how these teams like to attack, a couple things really stand out to me. One, we have 2 teams that understand how efficient using shooters off of screens in unison with cuts can be. The Warriors first in both of those areas, and the Pelicans are very high as well. Second, neither team gets a lot of offense from their pick and roll ball handlers, which are usually low value shots. The pick and roll in general is more, it adds more value than that from those pass outs and dumping off to rollers or poppers. But even when you look at that, these are 2 teams that very rarely use the pick and roll to attack. So the next step down in that scheme funnel is to look at families of actions. To do this, we mapped out all of the actions included in a representative sample of offensive possessions from each team's first round matchup, and then organized them into these 7 groupings. From that, we can see that the Pelicans use a ton of ball screens in their attack, even though we know from before that they're not really scoring all that much off of them. We can see that the Warriors are running tons of down screens, mainly wide pin downs and quick pins for Klay Thompson, and actually don't really use that many flare screens in their offensive attack. We also see that while both teams run relatively high numbers of actions per possession, the Pels use a little over 20% more action than Golden State, which, when we convert that to estimated actions per game, that's about 20 more actions, which is 20 more opportunities to pressure the defense. So then the last level of that funnel, or top of the pyramid, is the minute, what are the actual actions that the teams are running? So here's a word cloud of the Pelicans and what they did in the first round. This doesn't include ball screens because that would just be huge and make everything really tiny. And you'll note that stagger's on there twice. One of it is for staggered screens away from the ball for shooters, and then the other one is for staggered ball screens. But we have pretty good variety, great balance, pin downs, flare screens, dribble handoffs, dribble pitches, back screens, Spain action, rips, Detroit flare screens, flex cuts. We have Chicago action a lot, which is a down screen for a player in the corner who then receives a handoff. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of variety, and they keep you guessing with all of the different things that the Pelicans use with relatively similar frequencies. But then if we look at the Warriors, you can see that there are less words on there, and there's a lot less balance. That one big word, pin down, that's what the Dubs are doing. They're doing it a lot, and it makes them a little bit more predictable. They still run other things. You'll still see their floppy action and their drag screens and their split cuts and their down screens and their handoffs, but they don't have as much balance and they don't have nearly as much variety as what the Pelicans offense is bringing to the table. So next we're going to bring in KJ Smith, who's one of the best scheme guys out there, on the top play from each team that you should be keeping an eye out for and are brilliant schematically. So he's going to be breaking down the Warriors delay from a 5-out and then the Pelicans snap invert. So here's KJ.
The first play that we'll look at is run by the Golden State Warriors out of their 5-out series known as delay. At the NBA level, the guard usually pushes to the wing with the 5 known as the trail running to the top, in this case Draymond Green. Once that pass is made to the trail, there is a strong side flare screen for the point guard, while on the weak side there's a down screen happening for that player to fill up to the wing. The screeners are looking to slip after making contact with the teammate's defender, and Golden State does a great job of making sure that they point their back where they want their teammates to go. From here, the 5 may pass and follow into a ball screen, as well as dribble handoff into a ball screen, and Golden State is excellent at being able to drive, kick, and swing continuously for open shots, as well as flowing into their motion offense. Look for Golden State to run this as many times as possible against the New Orleans Pelicans in round 2 of the NBA playoffs. Like the Golden State Warriors, the New Orleans Pelicans also run a series of 5-out delay sets, and this one is known as snap invert. The snap action is when the guard hits ahead to the trail before sprinting back to get a quick handoff back from that trail. The invert portion is a simple term used to denote guards screening for the bigs instead of the usual other way around. In this case, shooting foreman Nikola Mirotic will pitch the ball back to the point guard before receiving a flare screen where he can go out to the corner for the 3, as well as curl the flare screen for a lob to the basket. Meanwhile, Anthony Davis is curling to the rim for a layup as well as a possible post-up opportunity, and he's also able to go to the perimeter for a jump shot if the team decides to go under. What makes this set so difficult to guard is teams really can't switch a smaller guy onto Anthony Davis, nor can they switch a smaller guard onto the tall shooting Nikola Mirotic. The curl screener will pop out as the next progression, where they look to enter to him and then Anthony Davis in the low post, or he can isolate after guards have cut through. This will be one that the Pelicans go to early and often as they try to take advantage of Anthony Davis's size and skill set close to the basket.
So if we turn our focus to how each team gets their top players involved, we can use my publicly available player comps machine and player profiles tool to see how Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Drew Holliday, and Anthony Davis get involved and score their points. So first we'll look at Kevin Durant, who based off of his play type frequencies categorizes as a point forward. He's done most of his damage as a pick and roll scorer, spot up shooter, and isolation scorer, as well as some off-screen shooting possessions, being in that top group. Some of his top style comparisons are Chris Middleton, Jimmy Butler, Drew Holiday, Paul George, and Devin Booker. And these are based off of those play type frequencies, not production or talent or potential or physical tools or any of that. But based off of his great production in each of these different areas, overall, his created points over expectation, which measures the points per game a player is giving their team over what an average player would score if given the same possessions, Durant is 4th in that. So there are only 3 players better in the league that are scoring more points per game more than an average player would on the same shots. One of those three guys is Steph Curry, who's actually first in the league in CPOE. He categorizes as a secondary creator because he does use the pick and roll, but he's also used a lot off ball. For example, off-screen shooting and spot-up shooting. Those are two of his top three play types, and those along with the pick and roll, he's great at each of those. He's a very efficient player, as we said, first in the league in CPOE. Based off of his play type frequencies, some of his top style comparisons are Bradley Beal, Paul George, Jeremy Lamb, Kent Bazemore, and again, Jrue Holiday.
This is a Chucky Beat production.
On the other end of this matchup, we have Anthony Davis and Jrue Holiday. Davis is categorized as a versatile big, which I think we can all agree upon. He's used most as a post-up scorer, but his other top play types are rolling and popping, being a dump-off man, and a spot-up shooter. He's incredibly efficient in each of these areas other than as a spot-up shooter, but overall still has a CPOE that's 7th best in the league. And based off of his play type frequencies, his top comps are Skal Labissiere, Willie Cauley-Stein, Julius Randle, Jonathan Motley, and Markieff Morris. Jrue Holiday, the other star player for the Pelicans, is categorized as a creator. And so this is different from a secondary creator, which Curry falls under, because as a creator, Holiday is much more overwhelmingly used as a pick and roll ball handler, as well as isolation and handoffs. So Holiday's top play types are as a pick and roll scorer, spot up shooter, isolation scorer, and he's been very good from an efficiency standpoint in each of these three areas. His CPOE is 45th best in the league, which, relax, it's still very good, 91st percentile. We have hundreds of players in the league, so 45th is still very, very good. And with what he brings on defense as well, Holiday's a very well-rounded player. Some of his top style comps are Jimmy Butler, Brandon Ingram from the Lakers, Dennis Smith Jr., Shabazz Napier, and CJ McCollum. Part of this matchup for both teams will be trying to figure out a way to slow down the opposing team's top players. So we can attempt to do some of that as well and figure out what the Warriors and what the Pelicans might do, or maybe what they should do to try to slow down the other team's top guys based off of what I've seen in the scheme and the data. We can start with Jrue Holiday, who is the #1 pick and roll ball handler in the league when you go over picks on him. It's hard to contain him. He does a great job getting to the rim, and he's just not a guy you can go over screens on. However, when you go under ball screens against him, he's in the 16th percentile this season, and over the past 2 or 3 years, he's much, much worse than this best in the league if you go over against him. And this matches up with his pull-up shooting data, spotting up in general. It's the move you want to do is force him to take that mid-range shot, make him pull up. If you let him get to the rim, he's a great finisher. We talked about earlier, he gets there a ton. And what him getting to the rim also does is it opens up those dump-offs for Anthony Davis. So if you can make him stop at that second level by going under the screen with your guard and trying to catch him there and giving him that pull-up, that might be the option Golden State elects to take to help slow down the Pelican offense. With the Warriors, we'll have to go a little bit deeper just because KD and Steph are freaking ridiculous. But Durant does like to post up. It's his 5th highest used play type in the half court. And when he does, at the left block, he's pretty balanced and he has some moves. On the right block, he has some very strong tendencies. And this is something the Pelicans can be aware of and sit on and try to contest better because they know what's coming. So when KD goes to the right block, he's going to either face up or go over his right shoulder, and he turns right shoulder most of the time. And then when he's turning to his right shoulder, he's gonna shoot a fadeaway jumper 90% of the time. So he's good at it, and he's a great shooter, a great scorer. But as a defense, knowing what he's about to do and forcing them to break their own tendencies and do things players are less comfortable with is the way you might be able to gain that extra point or two to help win a game. Another big piece to the puzzle for the series is the Warriors offense with and without Steph Curry. It might be easy to blame what we're seeing in the first round and recently on Steph's absence, but at least from a play type standpoint, there's little difference in the Warrior attack with and without Steph playing. Without Curry, the Warriors get into transition much less. That's the one substantial difference. The other ones are much smaller. And of those small changes, their off-screen possession volume is reduced they isolate a little bit more and post up a little bit more, but nothing else changes, and each of those, other than the transition frequency, don't drop or increase too much. Their efficiency as a team, though, does drop without it, and it pretty much drops all around and substantially in a few areas. The Warriors' attack in isolation, as well as the pick and roll, are much worse. Their post-up pass outs are a few steps behind what they normally are, and a big part of that is, well, Steph's not there knocking down shots out of their split cuts. So that's a high-level look. Here's what Sam Esfandiari of WarriorsWorld told me about this team's chances with and without Steph and how they play in each of those scenarios.
The main difference without Steph Curry for the Warriors is their offense becomes much less explosive. They're much more execution-based, much more Spursy when they play. With Steph, he demands double teams 30 feet out, and they play that beautiful run-and-gun style we're used to seeing. Without Steph, their pace drops, they move the ball around, and there's a general lack of offense outside of KD and Klay Thompson. They become much more reliant on their defense, which fortunately for the Warriors is top-notch when they're engaged. If Steph comes back and is healthy, I give the Warriors a 99% chance of winning this series. If Steph does not come back till mid-series, or if he is severely limited when he comes back, those odds drop to 65 to 75%. The Warriors should still win because they have more superior talent. However, it will be much more of a dogfight.
Now that we're through some of those major points, let's get into the keys to the series as well as series predictions. So first, here's Mason Ginsberg of ESPN affiliate Bourbon Street Shots on the keys to this series.
It's going to be a very tough series regardless, especially given the fact that we know that Curry is probably going to play definitely game 2, probably even game 1. One, I'd say the most glaring key is the Warriors are not the Warriors are not the Portland Trailblazers in that they have a lot more size on the perimeter that the Pelicans do, and they'll have to figure out how the best way for them to match up with that is. That Rondo was a key piece to last series, but can he play? Who can you hide him on? What's his role? The Pelicans have been pretty bad with both Solomon Hill and Rondo on the floor, but can you play both those guys? Probably not. Can Rondo stay on the floor? Does he have to be replaced by a guy like Solomon Hill who can match up better with those wings? An interesting key. The other two, I'd say, just kind of relate to the Pelican superstars. Anthony Davis. Can he keep up this incredible level of play for maybe 40-45 minutes per game? Can he stay out of foul trouble too? If AD gets matched up with Kevin Durant for any long stretches of time, that's a key consideration. Otherwise, I think he'll be fine. But if they put him on KD at all, I think it's gonna be very important to watch, make sure he doesn't pick up any silly fouls. Regarding the other star of the Pelicans and Jrue Holiday, he's got to continue to get into the paint. He did that such a great job of that against the Trailblazers last round. That wasn't really his forte historically. So that's something that we want to see a lot more of. It's not going to be as easy with the Warriors' twitching ability on defense and just the size from 1 through 5. It's a tall task, but I think that's equally important for the Pelicans to sustain a consistent offense against a team like the Warriors.
Those are some great points from Mason. The one that I'll add a stat to kind of back him up is Jrue Holiday getting to the rim. So if we're going to look at possessions at the rim per game, only Donovan Mitchell and James Harden have more around the basket non-post-up shots per game than Jrue Holiday among guards. And if we expand it to guards and forwards, that adds Clint Capella and actually Anthony Davis at 10 per game are the two there. So he's third among guards, fifth among all players, and Davis is first among forwards and all players at getting to the rim. And he's been both of them have been extremely efficient on those shots. So that's something that'll need to keep up in this series for the Pelicans to stay competitive and have a chance to win. In addition to what Mason said, KJ actually also had some input on keys to the series. So we were talking and he was telling me that if you're going to beat the Warriors 4 times, you're going to need 2 of these 3 things to happen each game to have a chance. You're going to need to dominate the Warriors inside, you're going to need the Warriors to turn the ball over, and you're going to need Draymond and Iguodala not to be making their threes. Each of these 3 things can happen, and we've seen them happen, but we've also seen when none of them happen, the Warriors just blow teams out of the water. So we'll see if the Pelicans can get some luck do a good job defensively, and force 2 of these 3 things to happen per game to have a chance. As we just mentioned, they do have a chance to dominate inside, and their 2 superstar players have been dominating inside so far during the playoffs. So who's going to win? We can look to my model to give us some insight in that regard. Here is if Steph Curry were to play every game, how would the series turn out? The Warriors with a 61% chance to win the series, and the most likely outcomes are Warriors in 6, then Warriors in 5 or 7, and then Pelicans in 7. Next, we can look at if Steph doesn't play at all, and this is interesting, the Pelicans would actually be favored according to the model, and it would have them most likely in 6 games. But obviously most likely Steph won't be playing 0 games or all of the games. There's most likely going to be some sort of in-between. So if we shift our focus to just the overall odds to win the series based on when Steph returns, here's a good look at what the model says might happen. So if he comes back in game 2, the Warriors have about a 59% chance to win the series. If Steph isn't back until game 6, 46% chance. So Steph coming back as early as possible, 100% will be big for the Warriors to be able to lock down the series, and the model's giving the Pelicans a decent chance to at least push this pretty far. Maybe not win, but push it pretty far, and if Steph is out, have a legitimate chance to win this series. For those gamblers out there, if we turn our focus to game 1 and just look at the against the spread pick, so the spread right now, based on what I'm seeing, is like Golden State -8, -8.5. If Steph does play, the model only gives the Warriors a 36% chance to cover, and if he doesn't play, that goes down to a 28% chance. So New Orleans on the road in Oracle +8 or +8.5 would be the pick for game 1. And for some background on my model, it's unlike many others. Instead of just looking at an overall team rating or overall offensive and defensive ratings, this model is looking deeper and able to identify matchups and mismatches at a better rate that allows it to see, for example, how the Pelicans match up great against Portland. So it's looking at how teams rebound, how they perform, in the post, in the pick and roll, in isolation, and it's able to see, okay, these players are going to be getting these kinds of possessions and they have opportunities to exploit mismatches against the other team. So through that, it's able to identify things like Pelicans winning against Portland, or the other upset pick for the first round is the Jazz against the Thunder, but that's how the model works, and that's a little bit of methodology for you. For those of you not familiar with my work, I have experiences in a couple different areas. Just recently, I finished my time running the analytics for a D1 Power 5 basketball program, where I've also done work scouting opposing team schemes. I currently co-host the Taking Charge podcast with Cranjis Basketball, which is available on all podcasting platforms, where we analyze the NBA and specifically the Lakers through the lenses of scheme and data. I also run NBA and NCAA betting models that have been fairly successful. This is our 2nd year in a row with a 99th percentile bracket for March Madness, and that model was 59% against the spread on the season. And our NBA model, still running right now. You can still go on my Patreon and purchase one of our affordable packages of different levels for the NBA picks throughout the playoffs. In addition, I've done work consulting with AAU, high school, and college coaches on designing their offenses and have some coaching experiences as well. And lastly, you can find more of my work on data and scheme at formblueandgold.com, with some pieces also at Nylon Calculus and Real Ball Insiders. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a test run of some concepts that we've been working on, so let me know what worked and what didn't work. Happy to make this improve moving forward. In the summer, I'll be looking to do this, but with about 100 times the production, quality, and use of cool technology. So there's a lot on the horizon. Just wanted to give this a try and see what the feedback was so we can fine-tune those things. So when this is run for real and we've got the touchscreen TVs and I'm actually on video and all that, it'll be as good as possible. Feel free to drop a like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at T1M_NBA. So that's at Tim with a 1_NBA. And consider visiting my Patreon at patreon.com/Cranjis if you want to help me up the production of these videos and also are interested in purchasing one of the gambling model pick packages available. Again, at very affordable rates, $5, $10, or $15. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video.